Welcome guys back to the channel, and me and AbdulSamad, we are continuing the standard series on like how to build a proper desk standard architecture, how to build brokers, how to build services and exposures. Yes, nowadays it became very popular. Everybody is talking about AI, about agents that we don't have to code and we don't have to basically build apps ourselves. We just can go and rely on the AI. But however, how are you going to use the AI if you don't understand how to build a proper architecture, if you don't understand what's going on like under the hood, right? What the backend is doing, what the front end is doing. So basically these series are like for you to understand the architecture, the basics of the software engineering, and like try to start thinking uh, before basically going and giving your prompts to AI as a real software engineer, and even for giving you, even for you to give a proper prompt, you need to understand how to build a project, how to build a backend, how to build services, how to basically talk to external systems. So basically, these series are for this knowledge. So we don't rely only on AI, but we understand the software engineering, we understand the architecture. And today I'm with my brother AbdulSamad. As always, I like to basically share knowledge with him, and he does it very good when he explains. Thank you very much, brother. So, like, our topic for today is basically the exposure. We already discussed the services, the brokers, right? We already discussed the foundation of the software architecture, of the standard architecture. So today is basically the last point, like the last contact, right? The point of contact, which is the exposure. And I uh, would like to ask Abdulsamad explain to us what exposures are, and like what is controller, and basically how to use and how to orchestrate, how to architect them. Yeah, Abdulsamad.
Yeah,
Hello.
everyone. So the exposure layer is basically the next door to the external person or external agent or external system that calls our internal system. So you could think of it as the door that basically an external system used to communicate to your own system, right? So take for example, let's say you have an API, you built an API endpoint, and you need to talk to that API endpoint. The only way you can talk to that API endpoint is through the door you communicate. So there is a guy who you are going to communicate with to talk to that system. So without this exposure layer, the external system cannot talk to your system. So an example of the exposure layer is like a controller. So when you build your API endpoint, if you need to expose that endpoint to the outside world, so someone outside can talk to your system, then you need to build the exposure layer, which in this case is the controller. And yeah, so if you also think about it in a microservice setting, you can have different orchestrator, right? Different microservices, but there is still going to be another microservice which is going to be your exposure layer that allows the external system communicate with your own personal system. So I think we can go ahead and basically show a diagram on how that looks.
Okay. Yeah. I just wanted to comment. Uh, yeah, so basically the standard architecture, like three layers, right? We've been discussing and trying to learn, are not gonna be applied only for the low level architecture, but you can apply the same rule to the middle level architecture, to the high level architecture. The same way we have controllers in the low level architecture, we have a web or mobile, for example, in the high level architecture, which is called an exposure. All right, let me quickly share my screen. So these are basically the diagrams from, let me know if you can see my screen, Abdulsamad.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's clear. I can see it.
Okay, let me zoom in. So basically, these are like the diagrams from previous videos, right? We already talked about brokers, right? We discussed brokers, and we also talked the services, right? There are different types of services such as orchestration, processing, foundation. So, and today's topic is basically the exposure, right, Abdul Samad?
Yeah, yeah. So from my previous explanation, so what I explained was the exposure layer is basically what allows the external system to talk to your system. So if we build a very big API that does a very complex logic. It talks to, let's say, it talks to Azure Blob, and this service sits in your service. It talks to an external API, or it talks to your database through the broker. And after building all of this, it still makes sense to say, oh, I need to make this endpoint open for someone to talk to, some external system to call my endpoint, because your endpoint is basically not usable if it's not being called from outside. I mean, that's why we are building endpoints
Yes,
for the business, right? Maybe to add some record to the database, maybe to save some pictures
yes,
and all those things. So with even when you build all these things, you need to kind of like create an exposure layer that allows um, that endpoint to be used by external systems. So in this case, this is why we are building the controller. So this is like the low
yes,
level architecture, where you have your controller talks to your service, talks to your broker. So without the
yes,
controller, external system cannot talk to your
yes.
API. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. Thank you very much, brother. This is like one of the best explanations. I would like to give an example, right? So imagine you have a system. You have a system and you want your system to do something, right? Let's say you want your system to send emails. You have a program which needs to send emails, right? So basically, to send those emails, you need to create a broker which communicates to the email external system, right? Right? To talk to the broker, to create that logic, which basically sends the email or sends like different emails, right? You need a service. But how are you going to allow that service, right? How are you going to allow, let's say, your mobile or your web or something or like a background service to call your to make your to call your service, right? So for that you need the exposure. You can think of it like, let's say you have a house, right? And the house contains like everything, let's say what you need, right? And to enter the house you enter through the door. So basically you can think of the exposure as a door, right? And definitely based on your configuration or your setup, not everybody can access your door, not everybody can enter your house. Only specific people can enter, which definitely you configure in the exposure, right? And if I'm not mistaken, like Abdul Samad, like in the programming world, if you have a service which works, to expose it to let other external systems to use your service, right? You need something which exposes your service. Is that
Yep.
correct? Like in the programming itself, I think we have this principle, and like not all languages allow you just to expose your service.
Yeah. Yeah. That's correct.
Yeah. And I also think that it's like if you don't have the exposure, what do you think, like how does exposure help from the security perspective?
Yeah. So I think at the exposure layer, you can basically do a lot of things. Take for example, you can restrict. who has access to your endpoint. So even though you have like a
Mhm.
door, it's just like, oh, you have a house and you have a door. It is only those who have the key to that door that can come in into the house. So your exposure layer helps with that kind of security. So it's just like, oh, if it's my house, only I have the key to the house. So if I come to the house, I can open the door, then talk to, I mean, go inside my house. But if someone random comes without the key, they do not have access. So these are the different security measures. These are the different authorization factors or measures you can put in place at the exposure layer to say, oh, I only want someone who has access to come in to talk, to
Yeah.
communicate with my system. And you can only, even if someone actually is part of your system, maybe you have some users, you still can restrict some certain users to say, oh, I want only a user with this particular role to have access. So let's say only a user with the admin role to have access to this endpoint, this particular endpoint. Only, and you can also decide to say, oh, I want everybody, every user to have access to your endpoint. So that's how it works. You can put a lot of security measures in place at your exposure layer. And I think it's very important, depending on how sensitive your endpoints are.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's all the exposure topic. It's not that complex as the services, or brokers. It's very straightforward. And if you guys want to join the standard organization and contribute on the open source projects and see how the brokers are written, how the foundations are really implemented, like how the controller, how the exposure looks, you can join the standard organization. Let me quickly share my screen. I'm gonna leave the description, the link in the description. Let me quickly share my screen. So, um, all right. So this is the standard organization. Feel free to join. And there are a lot of open source projects in here. As you can see, the event highway. Do you remember AbdulSamad? We used to build it together. Um, Many of the standard like uh, open source projects. You can go and just pick up any of them and just read the code. See, like, honestly, everything is clear. You open a project, let's say you go to the core and you can see the brokers in here. You see the brokers, right? You see the services. This is exactly what we've been explaining with Abdussamad to you. If you open the services, you can see foundations, processings, orchestrations, coordinations. If you go to the brokers, you can see different types of the brokers, right? APIs, configurations, storages, loggings. Everything is straightforward and it's level 0. So thank you very much, guys, for your time, for watching this video. If you liked, please like, comment, and share with your friends, with software engineers. And hopefully, me and Abdulsamad are going to continue similar series. Maybe we will talk about AI in the future. All right. Thank you very much, brother Abdulsamad. See you soon.
Thanks.
Thank you, guys. Bye
Thank
bye.
you.